Look at what happened to the price of rice. As a Korean, I don't shop for rice, but a lot of ladies do. They didn't really realize why that bag of rice from $5 went to 19. Brazil said we're not going to take no more dollars for rice. We'd rather eat it on our own because our economy is growing. And from just Brazil stopping their exports to the U.S., bags of rice went from $5 to $15 overnight.
Already, I said I was trying to buy a young coconut. They were $1.19 4 months ago. I went to buy a young coconut. It was $1.69. 40-50% inflation in months. People on the ground all over America are noticing the price of bread and eggs and things going up. So there's inflation in what's important, which is food. So if that's the case, it'd be better to switch those dollars for food right now than not to do so.
I mean, we're going to see, seriously, victory gardens popping up all over LA and Southern California. Especially Southern California, because, you know what? Next year, it's going to be horrible for foods. I mean, horrible in a sense that it's going to be so inflated. Because, California this year, the fall harvest was wiped out. There's nothing in California. Where's the avocados? Where's the apples? Where's the pears? There's none.
The inventories of agricultural products are the lowest they've been in decades. Not years, Bernie, but in decades. And we're going to have more problems. There are going to be periods when people cannot get food at any price. And this has not happened in our lifetimes.
Last year, the farmers couldn't get loans for fertilizers. They had to shut down counties and counties and counties because of the water issue. There's colony collapse disorder where there's no bees in California. They've been having to import bees from Arizona, and that's not even covering even 10% of the pollination. So we're going to see a huge food shortage come next year. You're going to see hyperinflation big time.
When the Lamb opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth living creature say, "Come!" I looked, and there before me was a pale horse. Its rider was named Death, and Hades was following close behind him. They were given power over a fourth of the earth to kill by sword, famine, and plague, and by the wild beasts of the earth. When the Lamb opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, "Come!" I looked, and there before me was a black horse. Its rider was holding a pair of scales in his hand. Then I heard what sounded like a voice among the four living creatures saying,
2 pounds of wheat for a day's wages, and 6 pounds of barley for a day's wages.
On April 18, 2008, Southern Illinois and the surrounding states were reminded they live close to the New Madrid fault line. The 5.2 quake and the numerous aftershocks were minuscule in earthquake terms, but reminded everyone of the potential for another big one. like the series of 8+ magnitude quakes that occurred during the winter of 1811 to 1812. The Madrid Fault gets a lot of minor quakes and has a lot of associated fault lines running in all directions. One fault line runs to the Gulf and connects with yet another fault line running up from the Gulf along the eastern seaboard to Charleston, South Carolina, and Boston. All those old brick and masonry buildings. What makes the New Madrid so devastating is something called liquefaction. Quakes on rock are jolts, usually a single jolt, but incessant jiggling happens on mud, like the Mississippi mud, and everything is turned into a type of quicksand with a long, long reach. Not much is left standing. Well, why does North America have a fault line right in the middle of the plate? It's due to a diagonal pull on the North American continent. As the Atlantic widens at the equator, Mexico is pulled to the west while the New England area is kind of nailed into place. So, what's causing this diagonal pull? The massive North American plate is locked at the top, squared off like a blockhead, so it can't roll when the Atlantic pulls apart at the equator. River valleys are always a weak spot where the plate is thin. Well, for North America, this is right along the Mississippi, right through the New Madrid. Nice theory, but is there any evidence of this? A diagonal pull between New England and Mexico would have disasters occurring along a line between these 2 points. Let's take a look at what's been showing up since Planet X arrived in the vicinity in 2003. Tears in the earth, like this crevasse in Arizona. And there were bigger crevasses in the earth like this in Mexico too, just suddenly appearing. And sinkholes, like this one that appeared in Milwaukee in June of 2004. And Pennsylvania, of all places. Sinkholes galore in Pennsylvania lately. Landslides and derailing trains on the East Coast, and breaking steam and water and gas line mains nationwide, and buckling roadways near Houston. All indicative of the ground being pulled apart, pulled in different directions. This diagonal pull causes the land along the Mississippi to move in different directions, causing havoc to the bridges along the Mississippi. Like this bridge across the Mississippi in Minneapolis, which snapped sharply to the east when it gave on August 2nd, 2007. In the fall of 2005, there was a pewy smell along this diagonal pull. Rotten cabbage soup, old socks, rotten eggs. This was caused by rock layers being pulled apart, releasing rotting vegetation smell to the air. Another and more dramatic stretch stench occurred on August 8, 2007. This time the stench was recorded all the way from Italy and the UK, across the US, and all the way to Australia. Dozens of people were taken to the hospital in New York City and Perth, Australia, sickened by the methane gas, and birds dropped dead in Austin, Texas. At first it was assumed the dead birds were due to bioterrorism. You've heard the adage, a canary in the coal mine. This is due to birds being more sensitive to methane gas and dropping dead. And this is why they were used in the past to detect methane